I'm Sarah Wilson, and you're listening to the Roots and All Budcast. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Budcast. You may hear that behind me it's blowing a gale here in East Sussex, and we've got trees coming down, branches breaking off the big oaks. They're coming down, threatening to fall on our hedge and garden. So we've just had power cuts. We are not having a great time of it right now. And it's not really what I'm expecting from August, but never mind. The show must go on, as they say. So this week I was contacted by Penny Hearn, who works for Bee Watch, and she listened to the Dave Gawson episode that I did a couple of weeks ago and got in touch and suggested that I might want to speak to her about an app that she's worked on. Her and her company have designed an app, and it is for the purposes of letting beekeepers and swarm collectors and also pest controllers and pesticide users. And what it does is it allows them to all communicate with each other. And the idea behind it is that important local environmental information can be shared in real time with registered members of the app. So I thought it sounded like a brilliant idea, and Penny will explain it all right now.
The first thing to say is I'm not a beekeeper. I'm an environmental scientist, and I got involved with Bee Watch and the work that they're doing, and have just realised it's such a fascinating area of our environment, and it's just so important. And Bee Watch came about with a group of local beekeepers in South Oxfordshire who were experiencing a number of bee deaths or colony losses and weren't exactly sure why it was happening. So they got together and they wrote an app, as you do, that lets beekeepers, pesticide users, swarm controllers and members of the public all talk to each other. And we had a meeting last May that invited a load of local arable farmers, vineyard owners, golf course greenkeepers, gardeners, local residents, anyone that uses pesticides, of which we're situated in quite a hotspot area. Mm-hmm. And we just said, we really would like to know when pesticides are being sprayed, particularly in the vicinity of our hives, so that we can take some action to protect our bees. And did you know that we were actually here and there's a large number of hives in this location? And what came out of that meeting was overwhelmingly pesticide users, local residents even, don't know where beekeepers are, because you don't have to be registered to keep bees. Anyone can keep bees, that's fine. But there's no national register that's compulsory. And if you are using pesticides, you don't legally have to notify beekeepers of that intention. A lot of really good farm assurance schemes require you to do that to meet their assurance, but it's not a legal action. So we set up this meeting just to get people talking and get the awareness of, there's beekeepers here, it'd be really good if you could tell us. So that started in May last year, and we've just been working really hard to grow that message and get more people on board, and it's doing really well locally. And we've had lots of good response. People are using the app, they're telling us when they're going to be spraying, and that gives the beekeeper the chance to go and inspect their hives more regularly to find out, are there any impacts upon their bees. And the key part of the app is we've got a little traffic light image that pops up when you do a pesticide notification that tells you the ecotoxicity of that pesticide's active ingredient upon birds, honeybees, fish, aquatic invertebrates and human health. So if you get a red, highly toxic pesticide active ingredient that's being used within 5 kilometres of your beehives, as a beekeeper, you might think, right, I'm going to go and inspect really regularly, but also I'm going to close my hives today, or I will take measures to try and protect my bees. So it's just giving people that information to try and make an informed decision. And again, some of the points that I picked up in the podcast with Dave Gawson that you did was just the amount of pesticides that are used regularly. And again, there's huge amount of arable land around us, so it is a hotspot. It is taking place. A lot of people are doing it really conscientiously in the correct conditions. They're doing it as and when they need to. It's just having that communication of telling people that you're going to do it. And again, one of the biggest observations as beekeepers that we started to use to notice is just trying to build up this database of local environmental information and what these potential impacts are. So in February this year, we had 3 weeks of bad weather, high winds, cool temperatures, lots of rain. We'd worked really hard over the winter to nurture our bees and bring them up to great populations. And then a couple of days after the storms and the bad weather stopped and the conditions were suitable for the early spring spraying conditions, we started to get lots of returning dead bees. Our forager bees were returning back to the hives and dying. And we had piles of dead bees outside the front of each hive. So what we did, what you do when you have bee deaths, is you notify your bee inspector. They come out and they look at the hives and check if there's any obvious reasons, whether it's bad beekeeping, are there any diseases, pests, etc. And if they think it's a suspected poisoning, then they'll take a sample of those bees and they get sent off for testing. So we also did our own independent testing of our dead bees and we sent them off to a lab, and the results came back as no pesticide residues above the limits of detection, so no significant levels. The results that came back from the National Bee Unit, they also said no significant levels of pesticides present, but they did find a background level of fungicides that were in the samples. And we're just waiting to find out what those fungicides are. But I think this just ties in with the point that David Goulson was making, that quite often you get a cocktail or a mixture of pesticides that are applied to a particular crop or garden area, whatever it is, a product. And that can have a combined impact upon pollinators, but we don't necessarily know what those combined impacts are yet because there isn't enough information about the combined impact of pesticides upon pollinators. They'll look at the individual pesticide. Mm-hmm. So again, it just brings back to this need to get people, one, communicating about where beekeepers are, and two, if pesticides are going to be used, when and where. So it gives beekeepers time to help protect their bees, really. And that's how we came about. That's how it started.
Okay. So if you had an alert come up, what would you do to protect the bees?
So there's lots of different little things you can do. The first thing is just, instead of going out and checking your hives once a week, once every couple of weeks, if you know that spraying is going to be taking place, you can go out to your hives, you can have a quick check, have a look to see if everything's in order. And then again, when the spray event has taken place, you can continue to regularly check and see what the condition of your bees are. You will know as a beekeeper to your bees what their habits are, and you can confirm if there's any odd behavior, or if you start noticing returning bees that are then dying. You can build up that database of local environmental information and try and begin to build a picture as to why it could have happened. It also is really important for industry to know locally what's going on in particular areas and pockets. Mm-hmm. So that's the first stage, is just regularly inspecting and being given that knowledge in the first place. The second is, if, for example, it is a very highly toxic pesticide upon honeybees, for example, you can close your hives, you can prevent your bees from flying. One technique that our beekeepers do here is, particularly in the spring when there's a lot of spraying going on, they will take some old honeycomb or sugar syrup and they will feed the bees directly at the hives, so they don't have to forage further afield to find those food sources. So you can't prevent them, they fly, but you can put food closer to home. So there's lots of little tricks that you can do. Mm-hmm. But it's just being given that information in the first place.
So is it more, it is a preventative kind of measure, but it's also a case of measuring the impacts and reporting them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's we just see the value in the data. If you can register where your hives are, how many you've got, have you noticed any diseases, any pests, any suspected poisonings, you've got instantly the time, date and location where that information occurred. And then you've got the wider environmental picture of what's going on in your local area. So were there any spray events taking place that day? Was the weather particularly cold? Was it completely unrelated? It's just building up that picture and trying to piece it together. And we believe when we wrote the app that just having that complete log of what's going on will only help to feed information back. And when pesticide trials are done, there's a lot of laboratory trials done. You have some field trials that mimic conditions in the field, but then applying that to an everyday situation where you've got many arable farmers, for example, or we've got 3 golf courses within foraging distance of our hives, plus a lot of local gardeners, some who do use pesticides in their garden. We've got parish councils who spray glyphosate on the road. So there's all these factors going on. And it's just knowing when are they happening and does that information play a part on the impact of bees. And as our beekeeper, Philippe regularly says here, bees are the proxy for what's going on. Like they're one of the first responders, if you like, as all pollinators are to the health of what's immediately going on in your area. So it's just trying to find a way to record that information and get the conversation going.
I was looking on the website and it seems as if you can sign up if you're a professional, say landscaper or horticulturist, or if you're a landowner or you're a member of the public or you're a beekeeper. So there's lots of different kind of, you're covering all bases really to get, as you say, everyone to feed into this bigger kind of, data set.
Yes. Yes.
What's the incentive for people who are spraying to sign up? Because it might be, you might prove that actually there's no correlation between their spraying days and your, any problems that you have with the bees. But you might also prove that there are, in which case they might find that they can't suddenly use some of the chemicals that they've been using. So is there a worry that they might not sign up because of that reason?
So this was why we held our meeting, if you like, back in May last year. When we first had the idea, we approached a number of local pesticide users who are within foraging distance of our hives. And we said, this is what we want to do. Are you on board? What are your concerns? And the most common concern raised by arable farmers, vineyards and golf course greenkeepers was, why should I have to tell you why I'm spraying? And we just said, well, it's not hard to miss an enormous sprayer when it's out in the field. People can see that. We know when it's taking place, but we would just like to be told in advance so we can go and check our bees. And we've had incidents occur locally with beekeepers in the village where they've all collectively lost a number of bees and we don't know why. So we're just trying to find out what's the reason. So to preempt this, we said, well, that would be really good if you guys can get on board and start telling us. And we have a number of local farmers that do that. And they, in their own words, the pollinators are absolutely invaluable to them and they're really keen to do everything that they can to help. And it's such that there's a lot of conscientious applications taking place. People are really, really careful about when they spray or why, and will try and do it in the best possible conditions to help cause a minimal impact upon bees. So it's just that's the overriding message really, is people want to help. So that's really good. Yeah. It goes back to also being, you might not be a beekeeper, but you also could be a local resident in quite a pesticide hotspot. And if you're walking through a field that has a public footpath or next to something that's being sprayed, you might want to know about that too. So that's why members of the public can sign up to the app as well, and they can receive the same alerts that a beekeeper gets. So everybody who uses the app will be able to see the little traffic light ecotoxicity alert of what's being sprayed and where. The key point is this app includes all approved active ingredients in the UK for pesticides. So it's not just insecticides, it's everything. It's everything together. But the other part of it, I mean, this is one feature of the app, but again, it's building in that local information. Is last year we had hardly any honeybee swarms that were present in our region. There's been a steady decline that we've noticed locally. So we built into the app a function for anyone who's using it, to report a honeybee swarm so that registered swarm collectors can go out and get them. And it's important to look after swarms and try and rehome them, relocate them as soon as possible. And again, it helps build up your own population of bees. So that's another local environmental factor of, have you seen a swarm? Great, where is it? Can you go and notify a beekeeper to come and relocate it? So there's lots of different pockets of information that have started to come out from people using the app or people suggesting extra features. And as I said, we're really new still, so we're building all of that information in. But the key thing is just trying to build up that database of local information that will help beekeepers to ultimately help bees and build up that picture nationally, we hope. You've got a database of where things are taking place and when, and that's really important information.
Yeah, I mean, it's invaluable, really. So the majority of my listeners are probably gardeners of one type or another, some professional, some not. So you've got the swarm part of the app, and you've got that where they can report if they are actually carrying out spraying work. What else would they be able to sign up, or what might be the kind of key points of interest for them?
So if you were a regular pesticide user, and again, if you're large scale horticultural gardeners, I don't know if you would widely use it, but if you do, then a pesticide user is an obvious choice, because you're able to report any spray events. You can see where your local beekeepers are that are signed up to the app, and you can also report any swarms that you see. But if you're just a general member of the public who's interested in being able to report swarms and pesticide use, you can sign up, and you will just receive any alerts of pesticide use that's taking place within a kilometre of your location. So you can make a decision as to whether you're going to close your windows that day, for example, if they're spraying nearby. Or if you see a swarm of bees when you're out and about, you can take a picture, log its location, and send a notification, and that will go to all the other registered swarm collectors on the app, who can then go and collect it. So it's just trying to get this automated process. But there's another feature too, which we built in, and it's a tracking function that uses GPS location and vectors on your smartphone that allows you to record the flight, direction and location of anything that you've seen that might be interesting. So for example, Asian hornets are really important for people to be aware of at the moment. They're an invasive species. They have been recorded in the Channel Islands and the south coast of England, and they are predatory on honeybees. So there's a big campaign at the moment for people to have an awareness for the Asian hornet, and if they see one, you should notify it. It's a notifiable species. You need to notify it to the alert at CH email address, and our app allows you to record that Asian hornet, where it was flying, get a picture if you're lucky enough, and forward that information on. The tracking feature just allows you to record anything of interest and forward that information on. So it's again just building up local interesting sightings of species or whatever it is that you may feel is worth recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I think people will sign up to it, because for a lot of people, a really big problem is that, I mean, I haven't done it so much lately, but I have come across swarms, and you do have to ring around to try and find someone to come out and get them, and it's not easy. So if you could have a kind of easy way of doing that. Yeah, it's hard.
And I mean, the British Beekeeping Association have their swarm map of registered swarm collectors in your local area, and that's the first port of call for a lot of people. But like you say, it involves quite a lot of telephoning around, and our beekeepers here are swarm collectors, and we were just so fed up of spending many hours on the telephone arranging collections and then going to somebody's swarm to find out someone else has already been to collect it, or another swarm collector's turned up at the same time. And we just thought, this is crazy. An app can do this. So it's just a simple notification that allows one swarm collector to claim the swarm alert, if you like. So you're preventing the duplicate call outs. And again, it removes the need to publish people's names on the internet. So it's just a simple system. Brilliant. So it's got lots of features.
Yeah. So if going back to the spraying thing, if you were, say, a member of the public and you witness spraying happening, can you report that? Would you need to report that? Because you wouldn't necessarily know what it was,
you don't need to report it. It's if someone is spraying a crop protection product, they themselves will have to go through a strict recording process. But if they want to know what it is, you're absolutely entitled to go and ask the person spraying, what is it? Why are you doing it? And find that information out. If you have the app and that pesticide user is signed up, then you will get that information automatically. You'll see what it is they're using, what the ecotoxicity is. So obviously it's a two-way system. You need pesticide users and members of the public and beekeepers to sign up. And that's what we've been doing since May last year, is getting this awareness out there. We have Red Tractor approval of Bee Watch as one of the communication methods that farmers can use to notify beekeepers of their intention to spray in order to meet their assurance standards. So, like I said earlier, lots of arable farmers, many in fact, are doing this really conscientiously anyway. They're documenting what and when is happening. But to a member of the public who might not have seen it, it is interesting, and you can go and find out about that either from them directly or by signing up to an app like this.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea, and it would be lovely if you could get everything to sign up.
Absolutely. I guess the most important thing to say about the app, really, or one of the most important things, is when we were writing this, we decided that we wouldn't host any of the information that's generated by the app on people's smartphones or PCs. That's how a lot of apps work that are free. The data's all just stored on your phone. But we host everything securely on a cloud database. And that database has secured by design approval. So it's a secure database, and the data is reported anonymously. So everybody that signs up to the app gets a unique registration ID. But if you're a pesticide user, for example, and a beekeeper receives the alert, they don't know who sent it. They just get an alert of this event is happening at this location and it's this chemical. That's all they get. So it's just making sure that data is securely stored and it's not on somebody's smartphone or computer.
Is it free for everyone? Or
so we charge for everyone, and that's because purely we have to host that data, and data is large. There's a lot of it, and that's the aim. We're wanting to collect a lot of it to try and build up that anecdotal information and environmental information of where things are taking place. So the website, which is www.bee.watch, that contains all the information about the app and the different users and what each feature they get from it. But it works on Android and iOS smartphones, tablets, and then you also get a personalized web page account.
So you just go to your app store or whatever you've got on your phone or your tablet.
Yes, you have to
download it and away you go.
So you sign up on the web page first, and you have to register. So all the information that is then put in by you is traceable. So you register, and then you download the app from your smartphone, and you'll be given a username and password once you've purchase the app from the website, and that's how you then log in. So it's all totally secure.
Brilliant. Sounds as if you could maybe roll this out to cover other species.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of information within that app, and it could be applicable in so many different situations. So as I said, we started a year ago, and it's just gaining its audience and the ways it can be used. But overall, it's just trying to build up that picture of what's going on, and if people are interested to come and talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power. If we are concerned about the effects of pesticides on bees and anything else, really, we have to start collecting this data, and we have to kind of get a leg to stand on if we want to argue it one way or the other. You know, there's no point in kind of running scaremongering stories in the press, you know, from either point of view. If we can't prove it, then it means nothing. So I think that it is a brilliant thing to sign up to. I'm going to go and get it. As soon as I put the phone down to you, I'm going to get it, because I think it's brilliant. And without it, you know, we're kind of, trying to think of a polite way of saying peeing in the wind. But,
well, this is a message from our beekeepers. They were saying, if you want to do something to help, why don't we try and actually think of something that we can do to help? And that is starting these conversations, trying to help beekeepers help bees, and recording what's going on around you, and getting that information out to the people and policymakers who need to know it.
So thank you, Penny, for explaining everything about Bee-Watch. If you are interested in getting hold of the app, or if you'd like to find out more, you can go to their website, which is www.bee.watch, or you can go to your app store and download it. I have actually downloaded it, and I've downloaded it because, as Penny said, if I want to walk my dogs through a field, or if there's spraying going on in my area, then it's really handy to get notifications. And the more of us that can be on it, the more information there will be, and there will be a more of a joined up network to rely on. So yeah, do go and check it out. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next Tuesday.